Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of the Shannara Chronicles Wraith. And I enjoyed this episode because we got a little bit of all different kinds of stuff. We got some character development with Will, we got some more kind of information on Lyria, and we got movement on like Al-Anon and the whole kind of overarching plot that we're going with the whole Warlock Lord thing going on this season. So it starts off when we see Will and Merritt. They've been running through the night. And Merritt's like, shouldn't we rest or whatnot? And he's like, listen, we get to Shady Vale, we can find my uncle, then we can rest. We're almost there anyway. And then, of course, they hear the Mord race, and they're like, damn it, they found us. So they pretty much have to book it, and they get to a waterfall. And he's like, I hope it's deep enough. It should be deep enough for this at this time of year. And she looks at him like, are you crazy? So, of course, they jump into the water, and the Mord race can't go into water. So that's a good thing to kind of know about, like, the limitations of these creatures. So they go in, and they find this, like, underwater cave, and they're just kind of, like, talking about, like, well, how did you find this? Well, I used it to skip school when I was a kid and everything. And only place to escape from being different. And, of course, they're hearing the race in the distance and everything. It's like, okay, we need to figure out, like, a plan and everything. It's like, listen, we have to find my uncle, head south to the Human Federation, seek sanctuary, and that'll be okay. You think those things give a damn about human laws? She, like, retorts, she gets some pretty good words in edgewise on him in this episode. Kind of, like, firing back at, like, his plan, being like, they don't care about laws. They coming for you no matter what. And they're after your magic. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that you're not going to last long if you run. And he's like, you know what? It was hard to believe that Al-Anon could have a daughter, but you're just more and more like him, like, longer we talk. And he's like, who is your mother? And King Evantine's sister. And let's see, like, hence the ears. Pyrea. And he's like, well, I met her once with Al-Anon. She didn't mention a daughter. And, like, okay. She's, like, not surprised. She figured out she was pregnant. He'd already disappeared. And didn't know, like, until the magic, like, manifested and all that. And when she tried to press for more info, her mother would get angry. And, of course, she got kind of fed up and finally left. And, of course, she wasn't there when her mother died. So, of course, Will's like, well, I haven't seen him, and I don't plan on seeing him. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm kind of okay with that. Oh, God. So, of course, he's like, I don't want this any more complicated. And she's like, well, I'll make it really simple for you. I saved your ass twice. You owe me. And it's like, yeah, he does. So, of course, they say, like, sound like you're good enough. Let's kind of get out of here. So, of course, then we switch over to Eritrea and the Rovers. And she's like, listen, let me do the talking. I've got this. And, of course, one of them's like, shut up and all that. It's like, all right. And then one of the dudes dies with an axe in his head. They've really upped, like, the blood and violence since they removed the spike. I'm like, ooh, yes. And it's really shown in this scene as this dude shows up. He's like, oh, okay, it's my lucky day. Wouldn't be looking for a fight, would you? And he's like, all right, let's get to this. So he starts, like, just, like, throwing axes at people. Takes this cool staff that, like, splits out the blades and just, like, taking people down. There's this, oh, God. There's one dude pops up and he slices off all of his fingers, pretty much being like, if he survives this, he's like going to be Jimmy Two Thumbs, because all he's got is thumbs now. It's like, shit. And it was like really well done. I thought it could look hokey, but it's like, okay, they did pretty good with the CGI and seeing the fingers fall and all that, and just seeing him like fall over. It's like, damn, this dude knows how to handle himself. So of course, he cuts Eritrea free. He retracts his staff. He's like, all right. No doubt you could have handled them on your own. I didn't want to risk harming the merchandise. So, of course, they're like, oh, so what are you here for? You're a bounty hunter? It's like, oh, you're a quick study. Okay. And knocks her down. He's like, literally, he's like, Jax, wait. And it's like, Huh, okay. You know that Garrett Jax never waits. And it's got nothing to do with her. Just leave her. I'll come along quietly. It's like, well, I would kind of like you to come along quietly because I don't want to carry your spoiled ass all the way home. So let's go. They look at Eritrea. She's knocked out and all that. It's like, okay, there's got to be something more to her than meets the eye. She's probably some kind of royal person or something. So we see this night horse ride. We see Slander and King Ander going, and they meet Al-Anon. And Al-Anon pretty much is giving him a rundown of what's going on. That Bandon's alive. That Skull Mountain, so we've got a name for that mountain now. And, of course, they're talking about, like, all the crap that's going on, that he's corrupted by the Warlock Blade. He's being guided by the Master, the Warlock Lord, and he's like, well, I thought Will's father had killed him with the sword of Shannara. He's like, well, he took measures, and for it not to be final. The followers hid the heart. We pretty much got the blade and the skull, so they've got two now, and we've got to make sure they don't get to the skull. And, of course, Andrew's like, this is pretty much why people are kind of, like, pissed off about magic and everything. And, of course, Al-Anon's pretty much throwing it back like, you don't understand magic, Your Highness. Because he made these preparations to make sure that he could survive being killed. And, of course, yeah, this plays into Rigga's hands, like magic being used in harmful ways that harm people and bring about demons and just destruction and chaos. And it's like, listen, we hid the head, and the boy's got to be ready. We got to make sure that the kingdom doesn't fall apart, and of course, Andrew's pretty much like talking like, listen, we got my people in camps, and I'm the only king that we're left with, and like, we need support. Well, we need to stop the Crimson. Queen Tamlin's reached out to me. It's offered an alliance between the elves and the humans. I gotta speak to her. Truth, like, you can't face the Crimson or the Warlock Lord alone. So, okay, so they're going to see this queen. So then we get back to Will and Merritt, and they're outside. It's like, listen, we gotta keep going. Can't get risk-bound again. Let's go and do this. And he's like talking about, they're like pretty much still going all the way to the Shady Vale. And he's like asking her about like how she was taught to do all the magic that she can do, because she had made another projection to call him an ass. And of course she's like, well, I didn't learn. I was born this way. And he's like, Al-Anon didn't have innate magic. Like, druids learn it. And she's like, one of the many mysteries of my life. And he's like, I don't know what you expect from him. Like, wouldn't get your hopes too high. And he's like, well, like, the last druid, only one who could train me in magic. And it's pretty much what she needs. And he's like, okay, just be careful. Alright? Don't get your hopes too high. So she's like pretty much questioning him on why he uses magic, and like why he's adverse to it. He's like, yeah, you only use it except when it benefits you, right? When you heal yourself. And she's trying to get like, why do you avoid who you really are? These are your powers. This is what you can do. And he's like, you have no idea who I am. I just am an ordinary guy who wants an ordinary life. And she's like, well, then why don't you throw away the elf stones? You can't. And you keep using it and abusing it. I've seen the marks on your arm. So we get more confirmation that, like, abusing the stones and the magic in this way has led to those bumps on his arm. I'm like, okay, that's good to have that confirmation going forward. And, of course, he's, like, trying to, like, keep his position. Like, you don't, like the burden of magic and all of that. He's like, you're as judgmental as your father. And you can't keep running and hiding. And all that kind of stuff. And, like, you gotta learn. So, of course, then we see this, like, cool castle. We see these riders come up, and it's, like, on a dam and everything, and it's all gold. It's like, okay, cool. It's like, this is the kingdom of Lee, and, of course, Anders talking with this one kind of dude who's, like, part of his bodyguard right now. It's like, hey, you didn't think that the future of the elven race would be on our soldiers. And he's like, well, history's made by those who survive. And he's like, I hope there's the right decision, because we don't have any other choice. So we gotta be careful with Queen Tamlin. So, of course, they go up, they get inside, we see Queen Tamlin, and everybody kind of bows and they're like, okay, last time I saw you, you were 17 and you were drunk. So, clearly you've changed, hopefully for the better. And of course, he tries to charm her, saying that her beauty is timeless, and she's like, well, you're a charmer like your father, and he's like, oh, I hope wiser. And he's like, you're exhausted, we'll have a feast in your honor, go rest. So of course, we get to Will and Meredith again, trying to look for Uncle Flick, and of course they get into the house, move some stuff, and find him. It's like, oh god, and Will's like, alright, I'll fix you up and everything. So then we get to Garrett Jax being let in by some guards, and of course they're like, well, thank you for recovering my daughter, or Lyria, and she's like, alright, I'm still ready to offer you a permanent position here. And it was kind of interesting because the way he says, like, no, I'm good. I kind of like being a freelance. Don't want to be a lapdog or anything. He's like, okay, yeah, he gets to set his own hours, gets to do his own thing. Yeah, he's not being an asshole about it. He's just being like, well, the difference between being my own boss and having a boss. So, yeah, I'm good. I'll just be my bounty hunter stuff and do it. It's like, yeah, it's a little bit unpredictability, but he gets to set his own stuff. It's like, okay, this character's kind of interesting. Because he's like, nope, just point me to the Royal Bordello, and I'll be good. And, of course, they give him his payment and everything. It's like, all right, here we go. So, of course, then we get to General Riga and talking about the Shannara spotted near Storlock, and they want to send out a patrol to retrieve him immediately. And they're like, okay, the Druid is in Lee, and it's like Riga and his one dude is like, all right, we're going to go, and we'll handle the Druid. Then we get back to Will and Flick, and they're like, alright, we need to go south to Ereshag and get asylum from the Federation. And he's like, what about the Crimson and everything? And like, they were like chased out of Storlock, you know, the red and black smoke and all that. Talking about the Mord race, the servants of the Warlock Lord. He's like, Jesus. And Alanon and your father defeated them 30 years ago, and that's not the whole story. I gotta tell you kind of what happened there, Will. So it's like, oh, okay, we're gonna learn more about that going on through this episode. So we then switch back to Lee, the Kingdom of Lee, and Lyria is like dressed up back, talking to her mother, like, okay. She's like, you can't change me, I'm who I am. It's like, no, I just want you to smile and nod. Conversation's not your strong suit. And, of course, Anders like, okay, yeah, your daughter's beautiful and everything, and pleasure's mine. Bows to Tamlin, talks about how the demons came, we've refused Arbelon's call for aid. Reality is, if we didn't have the bravery of the elves, we wouldn't be here today. So, of course, they do a toast to them and courage of the new alliance that they forged. And it's like, okay, this is probably going to have to go to a marriage thing. So it kind of follows that going forward. So, of course, we see the Royal Bordello, we see Jax with his two women, and, of course, Eritrea pulls a knife on him, tries to get the info, and we're like, listen, okay, because she just wants to know where Lyria is and what's going on, and he's like, oh, alright, and then he kind of, like, reverses on her, and he's like, wait a minute, why are you here? You could have gone, like, home, and she's like, I'm not leaving. It's like, oh, so you're a hopeless romantic on this. Alright, I'll tell you what you need to know. And, of course, kind of leaves it at that. Then we get to King Ander and the Queen pretty much saying, you know what, I want you to marry my daughter to submit and cement this alliance. I want her on the throne of Arbelon. It's like, I don't know how the elves would take having a human being their leader, because it didn't sound like, I want her to be your queen kind of thing, and like rule together and be like, oh, okay, we've got an alliance this way. No, it sounded like she wanted her daughter on the throne of Arbelon making all the decisions, being like, if this marriage goes through, Ander probably won't survive it. So we just gotta hope that he thinks about that. So of course we see like some guards and everything in a hallway. We see Eritrea sneak in Lyria, like trying to talk about like, why would you lie, and like, was any of it real? And she's like, listen, I hated the person I used to be, and I was real with you. And, of course, the mother's got the idea is bring her back to marry an Elven King, Ander, and he's like, she's like, we gotta talk to them. Even though we get from Lyria that her mother hates the elves. So we don't know what her alliance maneuver truly means. It's like, oh god. Of course, the guards come in, take her away, strict orders, and she's like, listen, tell King Ander I'm here. It's like, okay. So Eritrea is brought to the queen, and Tamlin pretty much tries to do away with Eritrea's illusions of Lyria and saying like, oh, she's got a thing for fierce, like feisty brunettes, and she's running away with the scullery maid, and before that the innkeeper's son, pretty much making it into a pattern and just putting more seeds of doubt in Eritrea's mind. Pretty much like, listen, okay, she changes lovers like outfits. How about this? You leave the kingdom and forget my daughter. We give you all these diamonds here. And she's like, whoa. Otherwise, you leave the wrong end of a blade. And it's like, holy shit. She pushes the diamonds in the bag. We're not quite sure what path Eritrea chooses. So, of course, we get to Storlock and we see the one head gnome dude that was like teaching Will pretty much getting beaten up by these Crimson people. And they're like asking, where's the Shannara dude? Where's the Shannara? And, of course, why would you die for a half-breed magic user? And like, suit yourself, get ready to do it. And he's like, and then, of course, sorry to interrupt. Who the hell are you? And it's Bandon. He uses his magic to get the dude to stab his one friend with the weapon he had and then stab himself in the throat. And he's like, you... What are you? He's like, something you cannot comprehend. Grabs him, has a vision of Will, and all this stuff to figure out kind of like what he needs to know to get where he needs to go. Then, of course, he's like, okay, Shady Vale. That's where I gotta go. And he uses magic to take off the chain. He's like, listen, my fight's not with you. And I really like what they did with Bandon in this episode because it showed a more human kind of... He's not completely gone, complete dark side. He's like, he won't kill if he doesn't have to. He's like, listen, my fight's not with you. You better prepare for the war to come. Because once the Warlock Lord returns, no one will be safe. And then, of course, he leaves. And then we see, like, more Wraith view as they're, like, flying around. We see Will just kind of, like, talking with his uncle, Merith, asleep, and then kind of feigning to be asleep. As he's, like, talking about Shay and I were, like, Royal brothers. And called by Alanon to face the Warlock Lord. And I knew he couldn't do it alone. And, of course, after the war, he asked me to watch over you like you were my own. Made the promise to keep you away from the magic so that way keep you safe. And, of course, at this point, Merith's eyes are open and she's, like, listening. And he's like, I can't protect you anymore. And whether your father wanted to accept it or not, you're still called by his calling as well. With those elf stones. And he's like, I should have thrown these away like you said. And he's like, listen, I was wrong. You've got a duty, and this elf stones weren't what killed your father. It was denying his purpose and wallowing in regret. Kind of what Will's been doing. And I like that kind of shock. He's like, shit, that's kind of what I've been doing. Like Amberly and all that. So after we get that kind of information, we get to King Ander, and of course, they're just kind of like talking to, he's talking to Katanya and talking about like, yeah, you're going to be asked to marry the daughter. I get that. And of course, they've got their thing going on. And she's like, yeah, I understand. That's fine. And she's like, listen, your father, your brother, and Aunt really gave their lives, and we need to build something better, so it's fine. So, of course, they start kissing, and then Lyria comes in, and they're kind of help you. And, of course, Eritrea is kind of being let out by the guards, and Anna comes and says, okay, that is a hero of the War of the Forbidding. Ly's bringing that up with the Elcrease doing that. And she's under my protection, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? So, of course, she's like, well, I kind of got this message from Amberly. And they're like, you don't know what? And of course, we get to them all in a room. Somebody's called, and Ander leaves. They're like, okay, you're family now, Eritrea. And I'm like, I like that Ander was able to, like, sit down, have a conversation with Eritrea, talking about everything that had happened after she was, like, left. And you're like, listen, you're family now. You're part of this whole thing, and we're going to take care of you. That was kind of a cool thing and a cool moment for Ander kind of actually doing a part of a king's duty and looking after those who have helped the kingdom and should be considered part of the kingdom. So, of course, he leaves, and she's like trying to process everything. She's like, Amberly, the elk priest spoke to me, and Ellen's like, what way? Like a vision. Will's in danger. That's why I came back. And Ellen's like, I hope to spare Will from this from like further conflict. I'm like, wow. Al-Anon might have a rough exterior, but he does want to help people and those closest to him. And that was a nice kind of little thing to show how he cared. And it's like, alright, can't wait anymore. The Warlock Ward returns. Will's going to be the only one who can stop him. And Bandon will look for him. And Katiana's like, whoa, how's he in this? Explain. Like, we got to explain on the way to Shady Vale. Will be there, sense the Elfstone's presence. And of course, they kind of leave. And Larry calls to Eritrea. And he's like, well, I sense you two have things to discuss. Just make it quick. So Al-Anon and Katiana go off to the stables. And, well, Al-Anon goes off to the stables. Katiana kind of stays in the hallway while they start discussing their stuff. And, of course, Eritrea really doesn't believe because Lyria gives kind of like the same old kind of excuses of, it's different with you, we had something special, and she's like, listen, I kind of have to do what I have to do because she's like, prove it, come with me, and she's like, no, if I did, my mother would hunt for us and kill you. So there's nothing left for me here. So of course, Eritrea and Catania are kind of going off to like meet with Al-Anon. Al-Anon is in the stables, and Rigga comes in. It's like, the last druid of Paranor, and gets off the horse. And he's like, I've dreamt of meeting a druid since I was a boy. Read your history, studied your texts, and of course, he's like, listen, I'm going to give you one chance to surrender. He's like, no need for that. Your magic won't affect me, and puts on these like brass knuckles as Al-Anon tries to blast him with a staff, and it doesn't work. So of course he tries to use his staff, and Rick is able to like deflect it and sweeps, does a leg sweep on him, and pretty much knocks out Al-Anon. It's like, holy shit. So this dude knows what he's doing. It'll be interesting to see more of why Rigga is doing this. Because, granted, I understand that there's a general consensus that people are like, magic is bad, that's led to the shit that happened in the first season, we gotta stop that. But I want to see what's his personal vested interest in this, and he's prepared himself to take on magic users, and what his overall end goal is. Because we got the broad goal of pretty much taking out every magic user, but we gotta understand kind of why and how he's gonna try to accomplish that. So, of course, we get to the Wraith Vision again. We see Will and Merritt. Like, we gotta get out of here. We see three of them. So, they kind of have to book it out of there. We get back to Rigga saying that this collar's never to come off of Al-Anon. It blocks his magic. And we gotta get him back to Greymark. And they leave. And Eritrea and Catania are seeing this. And they're like, okay, do you know where that is? And she's like, I have no idea. So they're Crimson. We gotta tell Ander. We gotta send a patrol. What about you? And it's like, I'm gonna find Will before Bandon. So of course, Eritrea goes off by herself to get in contact with Will, while Catania is trying to rouse King Ander. So of course, we kind of get them going their separate ways. Catania tries to get to Ander, but meets with his guardsman instead, saying that he's with Tamlin to accept the terms. And he's like, what's going on? Al-Anon was taking him by the Crimson. They were waiting in the stables for him. You gotta tell him immediately. He's like, whoa. So you're the only one who knows this? Okay. And then stabs her. It's like, holy shit. Now granted, she wasn't that big of a character, but it was like, holy shit. You gotta watch out for what you're doing. And this is like one of those people that is protecting the king who's betrayed him and betrayed one of his advisors. Like, damn. So we go back to Wraith Vision as Will and Co are kind of like trying to escape. And of course, they're like, well, can we kill him? It's like, his uncle's like, not in smoke form. And it's like, alright, we'll go for the barn. And she's like, I'll buy you some more time. And she splits into like multiple people to kind of like confuse the Mordray. So it succeeds in pretty much taking two of them out. And of course, we get into the barn. Will's able to use his stones on the lead Mordray and kind of blast it down. And then, of course, we hear a bang as Bandon comes in. He's like, what the hell are you doing here, Bandon? And he's like, embracing my destiny, as the Mordred gets up behind him. And he's like, oh, shit, so that's your thing. And he's like, I belong to the Warlock Lord. help me find you, and what I want is justice for magic users like us. And we start getting Bandon's like full kind of context of why he's doing this. He's like, they've hunted people they don't understand, abused us by we've been abused by men like Alanon, and of course was like, I'm sorry that happened to you, and he didn't want that like to happen to him. So he's like trying to like get into Will's head, like, don't tell me you don't dream of Amberly and all that stuff. Think of the friends and family and the cost of the lies to us and all this stuff that like Alanon has done. And he's like, I can see you blame him for Amberly's death and like actually picking it from his mind and all that. And he's like, listen, the Warlock Lord can bring Amberly back and all that stuff. He's like, really? I don't know. And he's trying to bring Will to his side. It's like, wow, I was really kind of like interested in Bandon, like trying to persuade Will to actually help him. He's like, listen, I like you. You were kind to me when no one else was. It's like, wow. Bandon's not doing this to be an asshole. He's doing it tactically for the plans that he is trying to pursue. And bringing back the Warlock Lord and trying to make it safer for magic users and those that are outcast. Now, granted, the means at which he is doing this is not really very good, since he's pretty much trying to unleash a war upon the lands, but it's cool to get into his head and see that he's got more complex motivations rather than, I am evil, haha. You need more than that. Not every villain you see in a story does not see themselves as a villain. They see themselves as the hero of their story. And I like it when people are able to humanize their kind of actions. And so, of course, he's pretty much trying to figure out where the skull is. He's like, I need a Shannara to tell me where the skull is. And of course, the uncle's like, please, I will tell you, because he's picked up Will at this point and doing this kind of force choke, but it's making blood pour out of his ears and his nose. He's like, no, alright. And of course, he's able to see in the uncle's mind, see where it is. He's like, of course. It wasn't telling me to find, there's another Shannara rather than that. Of course, he's like, okay, it's in Paranor, it's locked in a safe that I can't open. Okay, but a Druid and a Shannara can, so we gotta find Alanon and bring him to the Druid's Keep. That's what he's telling the Will. So, why would I do that? You know all this is his fault, and because you love your uncle. So the Wraith then captures his uncle, and is like, oh crap. And of course, Will's trying to blast him with the stone, but of course he deflects it with the Warlock Blade back at him, and he's like, listen, you got 3 days. Bring the Druid or your uncle dies. And then knocks him out and leaves. And that's the end of the episode. So it's like, okay, we understand where this is going now. The whole endgame scenario is to stop the Warlock Lord from being resurrected. What is needed is the blade, the heart, and the skull. And of course it's going to be complicated because Alanon has been captured by the Crimson, so they're going to have to be dealt with first. And they have to figure out how to rescue Will's uncle while not completely giving into Bandon's plan to resurrect the Warlock Lord. So I'm interested to see how all these pieces shake out and kind of where it's going to be going and kind of what twists and turns can pop up along the way. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.